I want to talk about teachers and students, teachers having inappropriate relationships with students. There was the Sex for Grades scandal that broke a couple of years ago, and in our secondary schools, it seems as though some secondary schools is actually even much worse, because of course the students are younger.
They are younger.
Okay, and they are in a place where the authority level, the difference is much more pronounced than in the university.
Yes.
You see. So kids would naturally be more beholden onto the teachers.
And they'd be very intimidated.
You can't afford to abuse that.
Yes.
You can't afford to abuse that.
But yet, what are we finding? We're finding that some teachers are abusing that relationship. It's supposed to be a very professional teacher-student relationship. You're supposed to be that mentor, that guide, the person who protects the students, not the person who takes advantage of them.
Yeah.
But we've got something to watch.
Yes, I think we have. Let's take a look at a little insight that we have for you. It's a report by our colleague Caleb Kuda, and it's disturbing, but we'll come back and show you, what we really think of that. Let's take a look.
On the 4th of June 2021, a final year student of the Kaneshie Senior High Technical School in Accra shocked a gathering of parents, teachers and students during an open forum when she alleged that some teachers were sexually harassing them. The school swiftly set up an inquiry to probe the allegations. 10 teachers were initially accused. However, students submitted testimonies naming 5 teachers, including the patron of the Students' Representative Council, SRC, who serves on the disciplinary board of the school. According to a draft report cited by City News, some of the students accused some of their teachers of professing love to them. One teacher is said to have told a female student he intends to have sex with her in the science laboratory. Another teacher was accused of attempting to touch the breast and buttocks of his female students while she was at the sick bay. The accused teacher in his defense told the committee he was only trying to retrieve a phone the female student was hiding in her braziers, since keeping phones in schools was illegal. The student countered the claim, saying the teacher gave her the password to the school's Wi-Fi. Another accused teacher confirmed being familiar with his student but denied being intimate with her. Rather, he said he had been financially assisting his student since her father is bedridden, adding that they both commute to and from school together due to proximity. From the report, 2 accused teachers proposed love to the same student. The report also captures another teacher as having earlier been accused of similar offences in 2018, hence recommendations for his transfer, a move the African Education Watch is opposed to.
Indeed, transferring them will not be consistent with the dictates of the GS's own code of conduct, which is consistent with the Public Services Code of Conduct. So I think that the punishment being recommended to one of the teachers, which is their transfer, is absolutely a non-starter. Someone with a record of sexually molesting students should not be transferred to another school to continue that act. It is a no. And so the GES headquarters will have to intervene in the disciplinary processes taking place at the Kaneshie Senior High Technical School.
From the draft report, recommendations were made for most of the accused teachers to be verbally cautioned to refrain from extremely cordial relationships with their students. The SRC patron was to be cautioned and relieved of his duties as patron for inviting his student out so they could, quote, have fun together, unquote. Again, Africa Education Watch believes these are not punitive.
All right, so that's an excerpt from a report filed by Caleb Kuda regarding this incident of alleged sexual harassment at Kaneshie Secondary Technical School. Now, we'll be talking to Angela Dwamena-Aboagye, who is the Executive Director of the ARC Foundation. She does a lot of work with dealing with people who are victims of abuse. And we'll get her thoughts on the developing story and see what recommendations she has for how she thinks people should proceed and what the authorities should do about this. Very good morning to you, Angela.
Good morning.
Thank you for joining us on Breakfast Daily.
Well, thank you for having me.
All right, so let's get your initial thoughts on this story. Again, it's pretty fresh. A lot of people are getting the news, maybe for the first time this morning, but there's some stark details emerging from what has been happening at this particular school. And we have cited the report, which goes into detail about some of the allegations the students have made against some of their teachers. What's your initial reaction to this?
Well, the first thing is that it shouldn't surprise anybody, because we know that sexual harassment is endemic in our schools, and it has been so for a very long time. When we were kids, we knew things like that were happening. Things were happening between teachers and students and all of that. So we shouldn't be too surprised. I must say that we need to commend teachers who take their teaching duties seriously. We all know that during the COVID time, we all got to understand how dear teachers are to us, how very much they help us with our students. In fact, they are the second parents, if you like. And so for every teacher doing what they're supposed to do and teaching well and taking care of their students, we really want to thank them. Not all of them are bad nuts. Some of them are really good, but there are the bad nuts. There are those who take advantage of the students and take advantage of them sexually. There are those who think that these students are bushmeat, particularly those who go into the rural areas where there's hardship. They call having such relationship with the students like, an extra benefit, bushmeat, actually.
Wow.
And so this has been known for a long time. It's just that, we are slow about catching up with what to do with some of these issues when they arise. And I think it's time to really address these things in our schools more seriously than we've done.
Right.
So what would your instinctive first step be if you were to suggest a way to deal with this actually, like, properly and thoroughly? What would be your instinctive first step?
Instinctive first step is thorough investigation. Okay. And if they can't do it, then they must let the appropriate authorities do it. Now, where there has been actual touching, inappropriate touching and so on, that falls under indecent assault in our criminal code.
Okay.
And you can have police, skilled police people to investigate those kinds of issues where there's been asking, demanding for favors and let me take you out and do those things. May not be directly criminal, but they are still acts of sexual harassment. That's the kind of thing that SHRAJ has been mandated to do. So where the GES finds that it is having trouble, they should ask for skilled help in getting the investigation done. They can do it. I know GS has its codes, it has its investigative ways, but sometimes you need the skill to do this. So you can establish a certain basic, how do you call it, as the lawyers would say, that somebody is found culpable in a certain way. So they take the appropriate action.
Angela, in this particular situation at Katesco, the way these revelations came to light was that a meeting was held between parents, teachers, and students, and one student was bold enough to present this information and to level the accusations directly at these teachers, and other students followed suit. Now, we all know that a lot of times victims are afraid to come out and speak about the fact that they're being harassed, and sometimes they're victimized for doing that. How do we protect our students, and how do we make them comfortable enough in whatever situation they are, whichever school they're in, to be able to come out and level these accusations if they're indeed true, if they're indeed happening? How do we protect them? How do we support them? How do we empower them and encourage them to come out and speak boldly if they feel that they're being sexually harassed?
Usually the way you do this, and you do this effectively, is to have a framework. A framework that outlines what happens when some of these things happen. First, the preventive side, create a school environment in such a way that these things do not happen. And if they happen, what can be done? And this is known to everybody. staff, students, administrative staff, even those who come onto the compound and so on. Once people get to understand that there's a way in which you can approach something, it is easier for them because they know there's a procedure that will respond to them. But if there is nothing, if it's nebulous, if nobody knows that there are rules around these things, regulations around these things, then of course they don't feel safe enough to want to even talk about it. Because the question is, what will happen when I talk about it? I probably will end up being victimized. I think even in this case, you have some kind of a investigation going on. So it means that they took it seriously to a certain extent. In other cases, they will try to shut them up. They may throw them out. They may, victimize them. And it happened in other schools. So without the frameworks that help us to be able to say, this is what we do when this happens, that makes it difficult. And if it's not, even if it's there and it's not known, so that's the second part. If it's not known to the students, if it's not known to the staff, because sometimes there can be staff to staff harassment and all of that, then what do they do about it? So for me, that's the first place to start.
Yeah, I think so. We're talking about GES at the moment. Is there any role that the ministry also has to play in all of this?
Of course. They are the responding institutions. They are the policy institutions. So if GES is not doing what it's supposed to do, the ministry has to rise and do something. Okay, so I usually love that people work from a coordinated position. Okay. So ministry, GES, the particular school or schools, CHAS, the heads of the what do they call that institution? All of yes. Yeah. When you have to respond to something that's endemic, a coordinated approach is always better because people bring in their perspectives and people are able to do what it is that they need to do. But however, where it is such that something has occurred, there are immediate responding institutions. So if the GES comes in and realizes that these people are culpable after investigation, they must hand them over or put their sanctions in place. Okay, so for those who have committed anything that looks like indecent assault, you do what is administrative and you do what responds to the legal system. For those that do not meet that threshold, you do your administrative sanctions as appropriate. You don't just slap them on the wrist and then they go somewhere else and continue to do what they're doing.
Yeah. I mean,
yeah, we did. I mean, for our viewers to know, we did reach out to the Director General of GES, Dr. Aboagye. He was not available for this morning's conversation, but hopefully we'll hear their view on this soon. Yeah. I'm sure, and I would hope that they are going to conduct investigations and follow this up. But Angela, just before you go, we've seen in the report that for the teachers who were accused of this, various things have happened. For most of them, they were cautioned. We've seen that they've been given a caution not to engage with students inappropriately. One teacher is said to have been transferred, or he's been recommended for transfer because this is not the first time he's been accused of impropriety. Is that enough in a situation like this? I mean, I know we have to assume that someone is innocent until proven guilty, but is this action that's been taken so far enough, considering the circumstances?
Definitely not enough. Definitely, it will never deter people from going ahead to do these things. And it doesn't show that we are serious, really serious about addressing these kinds of issues. And it comes from a place. It comes from a place where usually, people think that, well, sometimes the students are to blame. They throw themselves at their teachers and so on and so forth. Yes, they do. Sometimes they do. But that is no excuse for any adult in a position of power. And the power position is the dynamic one. In a position of power to take advantage of the students. So it is important for people to understand that institutions usually respond from their cultural-based positioning of thinking. Okay. And that is what they don't take it seriously, because sometimes we blame the girls. They wear short skirts, they throw themselves at their teachers, they roll their eyes at them, they flirt with them. Yes, and that's why we usually respond like this. So once we understand that once you are in that relationship of power, you are not allowed to abuse it. It's as bad as corruption and abuse of power. Yes, then you do what is right. So they should take it seriously. It's not enough.
Yeah, well, thank you very much, Dr. Angela Dwamena-Aboagye, for speaking to us this morning. We're really grateful to you. Your thoughts and insights are always very helpful and useful in directing what it is that we need to do. So thank you very much for that. But Kokui, you know, I think that I want to just say this, that the Minister of Education, okay, he recently got lauded with a new laurel at UCLA. Yeah. So kudos to him and well done. But your work in Ghana, plenty day.
Plenty day. And as you know, we were discussing off air the fact that at an institution, I mean, we know Dr. Edichum has had extensive experience teaching in the US.
Yes.
He has been at institutions where this would never be countenanced. I mean, there's no, these teachers would not be at the school anymore.
In fact, you'll be fired that
on the spot.
day.
You'd be relieved of your duties. Investigations would still go on, but the least would be suspended while investigations are pending. Not a caution would not be even an option. So I hope he's following this and listening, and I hope the same standards that he is aware of in other jurisdictions will apply here as well, and that the ministry will take it seriously.
So. I hope so. I mean, we definitely didn't want to call out, you know, to the Ministry of Education. I think the GES should do what it is that they can, but the GES should not be left alone in this matter, because I think it's a very serious thing. And for me, I feel as though if it's happening in one school, it could be happening in many other schools on the blind side of the law, on the blind side of law enforcement, and we can't afford. I don't want to imagine my daughter in a school like that. No. Think about it.
Yeah, being taken advantage of. Yes. And this is, thank God, one of the girls are, you know, in the report, her guardians or her auntie chanced upon messages that a teacher had been sending her, informed her husband, and they went to the school to pursue it. Do you understand it? So if you don't have someone looking out for you like that, a teacher could easily take advantage of you. You know, there was one teacher who was giving one girl money because he knew she had a sick parent at home, and you know, those kinds of things to induce.
Those inducements. All of that is, you see, sexual harassment is not necessarily. You see, the word harass can give you the impression of I'm harassing you.
Exactly.
No, an inducement is a form of
sometimes
harassment.
It's subtle.
It's very subtle.
Especially with kids.
Yeah.
And they call it grooming.
Yeah.
A lot of times, doing things just to get that child to trust you. Yeah. You know, to have faith in you, and then you take advantage of them. It's not good in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah.
So
we need to do much better.
This.
And I hope that the GS is listening. I hope that the Ministry of Health is listening. Ministry of Education is listening. You know, and they will jump on this.
And the Ministry of Gender, again.
Yeah.
Yesterday we spoke about them.
This?
Teenage pregnancy was our discussion. Today we're talking about this. Where is the Ministry of Gender, Children and Social Protection? All right. Well, we'll keep talking about this for sure.
Well, we do have a packed show for you. I mean, later on we're going to be talking. We have a DIY segment. We have the creative lifestyle segment. A lot of interesting things going on. But before all of that is the news review.
Of course.